This video, Ford versus Ferrari catch up, may never have even come about had it not been for the fact that I had Andy Basham on for the Jesus Revolution. Because he said his primary movie choices would be Christian films and fast vehicle movies. So I chose, so my plan was every other month I would have Andy on. So he was here in December, and we were going to do Ford versus Ferrari in February. As you can tell, it's not February, and Andy's not here. He's been a very busy fella, being out and about, testifying. But after the open rolls, I will break down Ford versus Ferrari. Ford versus Ferrari came out in 2019 and ran 2 hours 32 minutes. We begin in 1959 at a 24-hour long Le Mans race. Matt Damon is filthy. Just the general concept of a 24-hour race is crazy to me. Man, Carroll Shelby, who Matt Damon is playing, was just on fire, but continues to race. Carroll is unable to continue racing anymore. His heart can't take it. This setting is it's so beautiful. I'm not sure that this California that we are visualizing was ever real, but I do like what the movie is showing off. We meet Christian Bale. He is pure money. He is playing Ken Miles, who throws a wrench at Carroll Shelby when he goes to recruit him. This cast, it just rocks. John Bernthal, Josh Lucas, they are here, and also both playing guys named Lee. One is Lee Iacocca and Lee Beebe, respectively. We meet the grandson of Henry Ford, and instantly I wonder, is he the biggest a-hole ever? Ken and Carroll are so awesome when they are on screen together. Basically, Ken Miles has no filter and will always let you know what is on his mind. And Carroll Shelby is very diplomatic, a very enjoyable, contrasting character. In 1963, Lee Iacocca, vice president of Ford, proposes to Henry Ford II to boost their sales of their cars by purchasing Ferrari. The idea of a merger feels nuts to me because I know little about cars and probably know less about the 1960s, but I had no idea that this was ever a thing, the idea of merging Ford and Ferrari. I get extra surprised when Ford and Ferrari's proposed partnership falls apart and Fiat swoops in. I don't think I even figured out Fiat was a thing until very recently. It took balls for Lee to try and make this happen. Way to go, Lee. But the insult of Ferrari just using Ford's offer to make this deal with Fiat behind their back is kind of what fuels this rivalry, and it makes Ford want to kick Ferrari in the behind because, yes, there was a slight rivalry because Ferrari kept winning the Le Mans race, but like the sellout or the backstabbing portion of the whole thing is what makes Ford want to win the race so badly. Carroll Shelby knows that Ford can't buy a win and enlists the help of Ken Miles to come up with the plan to beat Ferrari. If Ken may not be thoughtful and caring, but he is thorough. And Carroll, he is definitely the showman. He is flying into Ford to show off this Mustang that they think can win the race. I don't like that Ken isn't being honest with his wife, Molly Miles. He's hiding the fact that he's back in the game, if you will, from her. But then we figure out that she's also a speed freak like her husband, it's very cool. My goodness, Ken is getting $200 a day to do what he loves. Come on. This is it blows my mind that it's the 1960s and then they're paying him $200 a day to do something that he's passionate about, which I think is pretty cool. Unfortunately for Ken Miles, Josh Lucas's Lee Beebe is kind of a covert or surprise antagonist who wants to drop Miles, even though he has been a pivotal part in getting Ford and specifically Shelby to this place where they're at, making great progress. Lee wins and Ford isn't having Miles race. Dang, that's hard for Ken Miles. Carroll Shelby, who believes in Ken, is hurt, but he isn't at the race. But Ken, who knows, how to be a man, cares more about his wife Molly and their son than he does about the race. Or at least Ken is able to put on that strong face. Ken then listens to the race back home while the team is trying to win. But Molly, she turns off the radio in the garage, and because she knows that it bothers her husband that he was left behind. After the team loses without Ken Miles, Henry Ford the second, is having this meeting, and he wonders why he shouldn't fire everyone after they didn't win. Carroll Shelby has an amazing line, and he says, "You can't win a race by committee." Ford tells Shelby to go to war, and that is how badly Ford wants to beat Ferrari. With the Ford declaration of war, Shelby goes to Ken Miles' home, and Molly watches on as Carroll attempts to bring Ken back onto the team. Ken punches Carroll, and they have a bit of a scuffle before back to business. Such a dude way of doing things, and very enjoyable. I love the relationship between Ken and his son Peter. It's idyllic. Peter wants to be around his father, and Ken enjoys having his son around. It is a dream scenario. I still remember feeling as if my presence was just a burden while my father was working on vehicles, or really anything. He'd used being tired as an excuse to just be an ass. And while now, yes, I get, being an adult is basically being tired all the time. It's just, why is it that you couldn't, appreciate, value, desire that time? But back to the movie. Oh no, both Molly and Peter see Ken Miles crash. This fire is terrible. I'm so thankful Ken lived. I was so worried that this family was watching their patriarch die, which would have instantly made me want to give this movie a lower grade. Peter is understandably uneasy after seeing his dad on fire. I really hope that they don't kill Ken, but I have this feeling that he isn't going to make it to the end. Lee, the Josh Lucas variety, gets locked in Carroll Shelby's office. It is so fun watching the actual team work together to keep the know-it-all away from the mission. He thinks he can control everything, but he just messes up. The lead character does. Carroll takes Ford on a ride in their $9 million car. Henry Ford II both laughs and cries from this ride in this monster of a car. Ford says he wishes his dad was alive to see and feel this. Carroll Shelby, what a gamble, betting your company, your name, everything on your friend. But also, I'm not sure Carroll believes that anyone other than Ken Miles can do what needs to be done to win. That is obviously, since Carroll Shelby himself can't race any longer. Whether it's your first time here or you're a regular here at Mr. Super Oz, I just want to thank you for tuning in to the channel. It exists because I, Oz, from the channel Mr. Super Oz, I wrote a 68-page graphic novel called Everlasting Survivors. Volume 1 is called All Day Long. If you follow the link in the description of this video, you can get yourself hats, shirts, posters, all kinds of fun things. But most importantly, you can get the story itself. And the more people that pick up the story, the greater the chances are that there can be continued adventures with these heroes. If you could, give it a like, subscribe if you haven't already, leave a comment, enjoy. The true heart of this movie, while yes, the friendship is good and important, the biggest takeaway for me is the father-son relationship. Peter and Ken really make me worry about Ken Miles' life. Also, I bring this up probably too much to have not done a video on it yet, but when I think of emotional father-son films, I always think of Sylvester Stallone's Over the Top. Meet me halfway across the sky. Dang, Kenny Loggins knows how to make hit songs. Ken Miles wins the Daytona 500. Carroll Shelby is very happy his friend didn't lose his company. We then go to France. Man, I really hope Ken wins. The night before the race, Ken and Carroll share some good times, but come race day, they both worry about Ferrari. Peter is watching the Le Mans on TV, and he is such a smart kid. He knows his dad's car door is messed up. Even though Ford has issues, Ferrari is very confident. So then that showman, Carroll Shelby, takes a stopwatch from Ferrari, I think just to mess with them. In the race, Miles is burning up his brakes. He speaks to the car like it's his lady, while his actual lady, Molly, and his son Peter are trying to stay awake in America to support, well, her husband and his father, Ken. Even though the movie is generally serious, they're also very good at dropping laugh-out-loud lines like, "I don't speak Italian, but he ain't happy." Like with the stopwatch, but better, Shelby keeps taking things from the opposing team. This time he convinces the guy they forgot to put a lug nut on their Ferrari, which was very smart because it keeps them second guessing, falling behind. And back in America, the kid playing Peter is impressive. He is very, like, he's just a great performance, basically. Essentially, he might be my favorite kid actor I've seen in quite some time. Ken Miles has set 3 records in this race, while Ford and Shelby are happy that super annoying Lee, played by Josh Lucas, has an idea to rain on the parade of Ken Miles and Carroll Shelby's success, because of course he does. Lee wants Ken to slow down and let the second and third place cars, which are also Fords, catch up to him, and for all 3 of these Fords to cross the finish line together. While Lee's plan would make for a great photo, and what it doesn't take into consideration is that anything can happen. I'm legit still worried about Ken. I get scared that he's going to die at any time. Will Ken be a team player and fall back like Lee wants? Because I could see it going either way. Ken and Carroll are rebels inside of an empire. They both made this happen. Shouldn't Ken get that winning spot and not have to share it with 2 other Fords? I don't know. Look at that. Ken Miles slows down. All the press are freaking out. Molly is so proud of her husband, and it makes me emotional remembering the scene just while I'm typing up the notes. Of course, Josh Lucas's Lee Beebe is smug because he gets his way. After the race, Shelby and Miles are already planning for the next time around at the Le Mans, and this is the thing about the competitive spirit that is hard to keep. It's hard to keep it satisfied. That was one amazing ride. Back in America, Peter is hanging out with the crew while Ken is testing out the car, and his brakes go out just like they always already knew was an issue. And unfortunately, just as I felt throughout the film, Ken Miles does not make it. And there's definitely a part of me that when this first initially happened, I was like, why couldn't we have just ended at the Lamont with them planning for the future? It would have been such a satisfying ending. And that's not how it ends, though. The movie cuts to 6 months into the future. A friend of Carroll Shelby tells him sometimes racers don't get out of the car, and this prompts Carroll to go to Ken's house. We see Molly watching Peter play outside, or watching him outside when Shelby walks up. This kid is he's so good at doing this powerful work. He's strong and possibly even stronger than he should be, but Carroll Shelby gives Peter the wrench Ken threw at him as a memento for their partnership, that the work they put together to get to the place they did. Molly is also strong. She waves at Carroll Shelby, a man who can't even stand to look at himself, really. Up until Ken died, I was considering giving this movie a spectacular 6 out of 5 stars score, but given how overwhelmingly sad, I considered lowering it. But after the passage of time and considering it and just thinking over, the more I considered it, the pain was actually important. So I'm sticking with the spectacular 6 out of 5 star score. This movie hits on so many levels. I seriously feel like I could rewatch this thing multiple times just because of what it is that connects about it is that human element. It's really not so much about winning a race or beating another car company in a race, but it's that family, it's that friendship, it's that camaraderie, that bond that makes Ford versus Ferrari spectacular. Like I said before the review, I probably wouldn't have watched Ford versus Ferrari on my own, and I primarily watched it because of Andy's interests. But I'm so glad that I did watch, and I do look forward to his return to the channel. Like I said, I had originally intended for us to record every other month, but life just got in the way. I took a new role in my paying job world, and he's been all around the country, and so I do look forward to him returning, and I do recommend that you subscribe to his channel, Drivetrain. Thank you for tuning in. Come back all week. Enjoy.